The night over the Solomon Islands felt heavier than usual, a black curtain pulled tight over the sea. Aboard the destroyer Shigeru, Lieutenant Commander Tanaka stood on the bridge with only the dim glow of a shaded lamp touching his face. The rest of the ship moved in near pitch darkness. The order was strict: no lights, no noise, no mistakes. Their convoy had to slip through undetected. Waves slapped softly against the hull. The low hum of engines vibrated through steel ribs. A distant thunderhead flickered silently. A junior officer approached, voice lowered. "Sir, do you believe the Americans will attack tonight?" Tanaka didn't turn. His binoculars remained fixed on nothing but black water. "The Americans learn quickly," he said, "and lately, they see farther than any man could." Rumors of SG surface search radar, mounted on the newest ships of the United States Navy, had been spreading like ghost stories. Some officers dismissed them as exaggeration. Tanaka didn't. He'd seen too many Imperial ships vanish in the night without ever spotting the enemy. He exhaled slowly, trying to calm the tension crawling along his spine. "Prepare lookouts. Double watch rotation." Below deck, sailors tightened ammunition straps, whispered prayers, and checked torpedo tubes. The smell of oil and sea salt filled the narrow corridors. Someone joked nervously that the night was so dark, even the moon had gone into hiding. No one laughed. Meanwhile, 8 miles away across the Black Ocean, inside the armored plotting room of the battleship USS Washington, Chief Fire Controlman Reeves watched the Mark 8 radar sweep its arc with calm confidence. Soft electronic ping, ping, red lighting splashed across the room, giving the men an almost spectral look. A young sailor leaned closer to Reeves. "Feels strange, doesn't it? Seeing ships before they see us." Reeves cracked a tired smile. "Strange or not, it keeps us alive. Out here, the first to see wins. The second," he tapped the plotting table lightly, "never gets the chance." Up on the bridge, Captain Glenn Davis scanned the horizon, although he knew he wouldn't see anything with his eyes alone. Radar was their new compass, their new night vision. "The age of blind guessing was over." "If we confirm contact," he said, "open fire without hesitation." Back aboard Shigeru, midnight drew closer. The convoy pushed through waters once ruled with confidence by the Imperial Japanese Navy. But tonight Tanaka felt something was off, a pressure in the air, like an unseen predator watching. A lookout suddenly stiffened. "Movement?" "No." Reflection. "Sir, I thought I saw." Tanaka cut him off. "Report only what you're certain of." But even he sensed it, a presence out there, just beyond human perception. Then, at 2,300 hours, the darkness trembled. On the USS Washington, the radar operator straightened sharply. Multiple bogies detected. 8 miles out. Bearing 127. The comm room snapped into motion. Battle stations. Klaxons wailed. Footsteps thundered. Breach blocks slammed. The giant battleship awakened like a steel beast stirred from sleep. On Shigeru, Tanaka felt it before he heard it, a subtle vibration through the soles of his boots, as if the ocean itself had started growling. Then a lookout screamed. Muzzle flashes, far off. Starboard side. But Tanaka saw nothing but darkness. Then the horizon erupted, huge red-orange blossoms flared in the distance, followed by earth-shaking roars. The Americans had opened fire. Impossible. Tanaka shouted. "How are they seeing us?" No sooner had he spoken than the first shells screamed overhead. Massive geysers exploded around the ship, drenching the deck with seawater and shrapnel spray. "Brace! Brace!" The destroyer jolted violently under the pressure waves. Young sailors clung to railings as the sky lit up with fiery arcs. US 16-inch shells, each nearly a ton, falling with terrifying precision. "Sir," an ensign cried, voice cracking, "they're hitting from 8 miles, at night." Tanaka steadied himself on the bridge railing, jaw tight. "This is radar," he muttered. "Tonight, the Americans own the darkness." Another salvo landed closer, shaking the ship as alarms wailed and officers shouted damage reports. The sea boiled with explosions. What had once been the Imperial Navy's battlefield advantage, the night, was now its greatest vulnerability. Tanaka watched the next wave of fiery arc streak across the black sky and knew the truth: the night had changed forever. The ocean still glowed faintly from the last American salvo, distant flashes fading into the dark like dying stars. Aboard the battered Shigure, Lieutenant Commander Tanaka steadied himself against the tilted deck. The destroyer shuddered with each swell, still reeling from near misses that had torn chunks from her hull and flooded compartments near the stern. Fires crackled somewhere aft. Shouted voices echoed. Pumps thumped desperately. Tanaka wiped soot from his face as a young sailor approached, breathing hard. "Sir. The cruiser Kumano is signaling, she's taken heavy damage. Takanami may be burning." Tanaka closed his eyes briefly. The convoy that had slipped so confidently into the night was now staggering, blind and bleeding. "Prepare to make smoke," he said. "We'll cover the others if we can." The crew moved with frantic urgency, their silhouettes barely visible under the dim red emergency lamps. Torpedo crews reloaded what they could, though the tubes had taken a jarring blast earlier. Men whispered prayers, some for survival, some for comrades already swept overboard by explosions. Out in the darkness, the American formation pressed forward with deliberate calm. Inside USS Washington, Chief Fire Controlman Reeves watched the radar returns with steady focus. Enemy destroyer turning, another breaking off. Adjust solution 3 degrees. A spotter confirmed. Range steady. Recommend continue fire. Reeves gave the order, and moments later the ship's 9 16-inch guns slammed the night again. Thunderous shockwaves rolled through the steel decks. Shells arced invisibly, guided not by eyesight but by calculations and radar pulses. The Americans weren't hunting blindly. This was a methodical dismantling. On Shigure, the sea erupted beside the bow, the blast hammering the deck like a giant's fist. Several sailors were thrown off their feet. Splinters of steel clattered across the bridge, hard to port. Tanaka yelled, "Full speed." The destroyer heeled sharply, her engines straining. They were running now, zigzagging wildly in the ink-black water. "Torpedoes away," cried a gunner beneath them as 2 long-lance torpedoes splashed into the sea, cutting their silent paths toward radar ghosts the crew couldn't see, but the range was too long, the angles too desperate. On USS Washington, a radioman called out, "Possible torpedoes in the water. Enemy spread launched." Reeves responded calmly, "Come to new heading. Keep firing until ordered otherwise." The great battleship pivoted smoothly, its thick armor shrugging off concerns that would have terrified smaller vessels. Then came the next salvo, and the next. At BY-0130 hours, the Americans began withdrawing to avoid dawn-air attacks, satisfied they had torn the Japanese convoy apart. Their thunder faded into the long Pacific night. A strange silence settled, broken only by fires hissing as they met seawater. Aboard Shigure, the surviving crew stood amid smoke, debris, and wounded men being carried on makeshift stretchers. The ship was still afloat, scarred, limping, but alive. Tanaka leaned against the railing, exhausted. The stars were starting to reappear through thinning clouds. A sailor approached hesitantly, voice trembling, "Sir, how did they do it? They never even saw us." Tanaka stared out over the black water where US shells had rained from beyond human sight. "Because they weren't fighting with eyes," he said quietly. "They were fighting with signals, numbers, machines." The sailor swallowed. "So the night doesn't belong to us anymore." Tanaka shook his head slowly. "Not since tonight." The destroyer limped toward safer waters, guided by the faint glow of burning ships left behind, dim reminders that the old rules of war had been shattered. Years later, long after the guns had gone silent, Tanaka would revisit the Pacific as a civilian. He would read about the radar systems developed aboard American battleships like the great USS Washington and reflect on how a single night had shown him the future of naval warfare. Standing on a peaceful shoreline, he whispered to himself, "We fought with courage. But courage alone cannot stand against a world that changes faster than men can see." He watched the waves roll in, calm, gentle, nothing like the night that had once been filled with thunder and flame. The cost of that night lived on in memories, in graves beneath the Pacific, and in the quiet truth that every leap in technology leaves behind human lives that never had a chance to catch up. And in that silence, one lasting thought returned to him: war advances, but it never grows kinder.